We'll call the June meeting to order. And of course, as is our custom, we always look around to see if there are anyone from the general public here. Seeing none, we're going to move on. That's item number 2, and we're going to move on to item number 3, which is the approval of the minutes from our prior meeting. We've all had the opportunity to examine, and at this particular point in time, I would like to ask if there are any additions or corrections. Hearing none, I will ask for a motion and a second for their approval. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, by like sign? I think I heard everybody say aye. And let's move on to item number 4. That's the approval of the vouchers. Again, we've all had in our board packet and information the opportunity to approve, or rather review for the approval of the vouchers. Are there any additions, corrections, or questions to the vouchers? Hearing none, again, I will ask for a motion and a second for the approval of the vouchers.
I make that motion.
Having a motion and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let's move on to item number 5 then. Let's call on Mr. Fagan for the review for the monthly reports for the month of April.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you have the revenue and expense summary through the month of April 2017. For the month, the electric department had a net income of $252,000, and the water and sewer department had a loss of $12,000. The year-to-date numbers, the electric department has done extremely well, and we're $1.2 million ahead of the forecast. As I always say, anytime you look in this column right here and the numbers are positive, that's a good thing. And what you see is sales are up, and the power cost, even though it's up, it's not up near as much as the sales are up. So, and then our operating expense is way down, as far as we're way ahead of the forecast as far as gain, positive I'm trying to say. So you add all that together, you have a good margin and reduced expense, then you end up ahead of the forecast, and that's what's happened there. The water department, although sales are up, it's really been a heavy expense year as far as maintenance. I'll give you an example. Sewer pump maintenance is about $78,000 ahead of the forecast right now, what we've had to spend on maintaining pumps and things out there. And those are just things you can't always plan on. So it's running behind the forecast. We're still hoping that somehow we can end up positive for the year. But you know, we're only 10 down right now, so maybe we can pull that out. And that's all I have, unless there are any specific questions.
Do we have to end up positive for the year? Is that a year-to-year thing? Or?
No, we don't have to. No, the state wants you to be positive every other year.
Okay.
You know, so.
Dudley, you want to take a second? I'm sorry that I'm now apparently hitting you blindsided off of this. But take a second and go over again how we do our days of cash. Would you care to do that?
Days of cash, and of course, in the water department, it's no issue because you've got a lot of cash. But in the electric department, you see we're down to 3. And what we do is, if you come over here, I've got that thing so sensitive. If you come over here, you know, and you look at this operating expense, and you look at the maintenance expense, and you look at this taxes and equivalent. Now, I don't count the depreciation, but those are all things that we have to do just to keep the doors open. You've got to do this operation, you got to do this maintenance, and you've got to pay your taxes. So I keep a rolling 12 months of that. Every month I drop a month off, I add a month just to keep what that is, and you divide that by 365 days, and you get what it cost you per day for the past 12 months to operate. And that is around $200,000 a day just for us to operate. Now, that doesn't include these capital projects, buying trucks. It doesn't include paying off debts. and things like that. That's just what it costs you to operate. Now, if you go to this page before and you look at this cash, general and temporary cash, and you take that amount and you divide it by the end of that cost per day, then you figure out how many days of cash you got, and that's why it's down to 3.
Now, this time of year, we expect that because we are coming off of winter months where we have paid a large power cost. We'll see that cash begin to expand when we start getting some of this revenue when we look at, we're paying a May power bill with the June and July revenue, we're gonna see, we hopefully will see that increase. But it's low any way you do it. If you just look at those numbers, we have a comfortability factor in when we look up for some of these other funds. We've got sinking funds, we've got construction funds, we've got storm damage contingency funds, we got hospital funds. I mean, there's not cash running around, but for this particular thing, these are the calculations that we do it, and it gives us a sense of where our available cash is and what it ought to be.
And our goal, reasonable goal,
Every time you say reasonable, I drop it, because then I want to be
realistic.
Desirable.
Well, that's different,
See, those are all different words.
That's right.
Those are all different
If I had
words.
20 days,
Okay.
if I had 20 days, I would be very happy. I would like double that. It would make me even happier, but that's
That'd be
part of the way I
desirable.
am. So, 30 would be good, but I would like to have 20, yes. That's the desirable.
Where are the contingency funds invested? The
We're
sinking
spread
funds.
out all over. We have funds.
Are they liquid?
Oh, yes. Well, a lot of them are. We've got general water funds, we've got storm damage contingency funds, we've got electric storm damage fund, we've got electric temporary investments, hospital, 2 different CDs in that. So I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 spread out. At Capital Market, we've got some at BB&T, we've got some at Regions. So yeah, we are spread out, but we're getting next to nothing. We're getting, 0.45.
And we actually just moved some to, I don't know if any of y'all know Jim Gardner. He's with
Sure
Service
do.
Bank. He's from Clinton. And
Who's he with now?
Service Bank.
Okay.
They're out of Bristol. And he came in and he's offered us 0.7, so 70 basis points. So that is a big jump from the 45 we're getting. So we're gonna move a lot of money over to him
Which
to
we
get
all get, that has to be collateralized,
Yeah.
so we don't have exposure. So if everything went south, I was here with go back to all of that problem with Mr. Butcher and everything else. We are all collateralized, our cash is, including our demand deposits are collateralized. That's part of what we do.
Those rates you see at the bank, they give you 2% and all that. We can't take our money and get that. If we take $5 million down there, they're gonna go, ooh. That don't work here. So collateralized money is a whole different game.
I was gonna say, that's the other factor right there is the collateralization of it is very, in other words, that really affects who is gonna wanna do it too.
That's right. They're not
gonna wanna do it.
Because that is impacting their books.
It sure is.
So they have to set funds aside or capital aside in order to collateralize that, and that restricts their ability then to lend that money out. So,
Exactly. It affects their.
But we
as you say,
demand
their
it.
ability to lend.
Will any of that change, so this is off base, but if the Dodd-Frank type bill,
well,
laws are-
no, it won't for us. It'll free up some ways to borrow money. They won't have to collateralize as much,
Basically tie
but
that
we
up,
will
say.
continue to demand that our money is collateralized. Security.
And they don't want to do that. Okay. Any other questions? All right, if I hear none, then I will ask for a motion and for a second, pardon me, on the monthly reports for the month of April.
So
Second.
Second, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed by like sign? Let's move on then to item number 6 on our agenda. And I'm gonna call on Mr. Bowles for an update on project status reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Project status for your electric department. We are in the final stages of our Phase 2 installation of our Claxton Station. We took delivery of the first transformer last week. We have it on the pad, and it is tested and virtually ready to go. So that project is right on schedule. We've now worked with the supplier, the transformer manufacturer, about coordinating the date for the second delivery of Unit 2. Dutch Valley, our crews are right at 95% complete. And our New River job, Phase 1, was completed about a month ahead of schedule, so we revised that completion schedule to June instead of July. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Do we have any questions, comments? Okay. Next item, which I'm sure that you had the opportunity to review. It's
Pending.
closed, but, and labeled as a completed project, but not closed because we still have invoices to be paid.
Yes,
So
sir.
Sure, next month that'll move to it, and we'll know that final work order cost then. Okay. Let's move on into item number 7. Ernie, we know you just love to keep the floor there, buddy. We have work order number 465. I'm gonna let you explain that to each of us and make your recommendation there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Work Order 465 is a project that we have in your proposed budget for this coming year. As we so often do, we have taken the liberty of going ahead to perform the engineering and preparing this estimate for your approval so that in the hopes that we can get started on that for continuity of our workforce out here. This 465 is the second phase of the New River job, which again we just got complete, and entails about 3 miles of new line along the highway. We have sections of this line that is across the New River, actually called New River, and it was built 60 plus years ago. And if the river is up, there are times when we cannot get to that line to get it up. So this is a great improvement for that, improvement in service for that area, and we would ask your approval for us to proceed with Work Order 465 as outlined.
Comments, questions?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We got a second and a third, so we're in good shape on that one. All those in favor of the approval, work order number 465, say aye.
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 Any opposed, like sign. Ernie, we won't keep ball in your court. Let's move on to work order number 480.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 480 is again a budgeted project for your proposed budget. Same spiel as the previous one for continuity of the workforce and our projects. We've proceeded with engineering and design and now presenting the work order to you so that we can get started with construction in a timely fashion. I didn't mention, but both of these are very close to what we had allotted in terms of the overall budget. The final engineering came in very close on both of those. This area is really in the heart of the community of Coalfield, and we're targeting this number 6 copper conductor that is become very brittle over time, and we're really making concerted efforts to get it off the system completely. And so we're first targeting the most heavily loaded of these number 6 copper lines, and the most apt to fail. So this is a project in that vein, and we're presenting that to you for your approval so that we can get started with construction with our own forces.
Is the salvage the reclaiming of the copper?
Largely, yes, yes.
Any other questions or comments? Sorry, guys. Thought I'd turn this thing off, and it will be. Are there any other questions or comments? No, I said I turned it off. It doesn't appear to one of them. There we go. Hearing no further questions or comments, and excusing my cell phone interruption, all those in favor say aye. Oh, wait a minute, we haven't had a motion.
We approve.
Cell
Work order
phone.
480.
Sorry, guys, cell phone got me a little bit off my game there. We do need a motion, and we need a second.
So moved. Second.
And we have a motion second. Thank you, ladies.
I didn't notice.
They
Garrett,
bailed
just so
me
you
out.
know.
Thank you for bailing me out. And now we will vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed by like sign? All right, let's move on then to item number 8. And we're gonna call on Dudley for that. This is the approval, the comparisons and the approval of our property and casualty insurance for the next year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is our annual property casualty insurance for the entire year. We're lucky enough that our general manager, Greg, serves as chairman of this DIC Distributors Insurance Company, and I don't know if that affected our rate or not, but for some
did
reason
not.
it went down. So
It could not.
he may have
I can
pulled.
speak to that.
Didn't officially, not.
Anyway, we're always glad when we see a decrease, and that's what we've got here. This TVPPA DIC insurance that Greg chairs, this is their proposal, and these are other proposals that we get. What DIC does is they are distributors insurance, and they specialize in coverages for utilities, and they pool that, and that's why you get such good rates. And you also get coverages that you can't get anywhere else. So that's why we prefer to stick with them. And of course, as you can see, they're low. Even with the additional coverages, they're lower than what we were able to get otherwise, and they're also lower than last year. So we recommend that we stick with this TVPPA DIC Insurance Company proposal for $553,475.
So moved. I'll take it that means there's no question. How about a second? Second. We have motion second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Like sign. Then item number 8 is approved. Now we'll kind of go to what I'm going to call 8.5, and I'm going to call on Mr. Fay.
Thank you.
This, we're going to talk about the approval of the adjustments in the delivery charges for residential and GSA 1 customers.
What I wanted to do is I was
Can I interrupt you a
struggled.
second?
Yes, you may.
Because I saw you working on some slides.
I didn't include those for you. That's okay,
Okay,
Dudley.
because they're not here. so
I know,
was gonna say,
I know,
all right.
that's okay. And I knew that. I'd already given you that one set, and then
Okay.
now we've got some information late this afternoon, which now I'm just gonna have to,
Okay.
you know, which won't be to anybody's chagrin, I promise you. You know. But it was difficult for me to try to formulate how to best present this to you. Now, remember that our budget is different from many that you're used to. It's certainly different from the city, and it's different from the school. We're not slaves to the budget. We don't live by the budget. This is a guideline in order to, that we match up with our projections for what our expenses are, what our capital outlay is, what our P&I is on our debt, our depreciation costs, and everything associated with that. And we mesh all that together to see if we're gonna have enough money to do business over the next year, realizing that if we have a storm in May and we have run out of budgeted, forecasted money for operations. We don't tell them, call us back July 1. So that, given all of that, we took some assumptions that can easily be done and undone and redone and recalculated. So the current, what you have seen and what we have provided you, and Dudley will go over that in more detail once we get some of these assumptions out of the way. What this budget assumes is that we are going to borrow money, as we talked about, what I recommended last month, and that we are going to address the delivery charge in the increments of $1 over time, over the next 3 years. That's what this budget assumes. What I'm going to talk to you about now is adjusting, having another option on this delivery charge. We've got 3 options. Number 1 is to do nothing. Number 2 is to approve a $3 charge that goes over a 3-year period. And option number 2 is to have a $3 charge in conjunction with a rate decrease, which essentially addresses the issue that we're trying to get to now. Do you have that up here at all, Dudley? Which would really be good. And I'll go right to, which is what you've done.
It gets you to the right place.
Yes, I'm good. I can do it from here, right there. This, as you look on your screen, this is what we talked about last month. Now, what the actual was, what we've done, and what we're thinking about $1 over the next 3 years, realizing that our target, which is now just over a year old, of this 2549, that's the target that we're trying to get to. That's what the last calculation was, what it cost us to actually serve at the meter. So at 1,500 kWh, come up with a number that, most folks would say over a year they're in that neighborhood. Currently, it's cost $159.90. That's with a $19.42 delivery charge and $140.48 worth of energy charge. If you look to the right of that, you can see that the delivery charge, I've got one at $20.42 and one at $22.42, which represents $1 above the $19.42 and $3 above the $19.42. What are their bills going to look like? Under option 1, you can see that there's no change in energy charge, and we move from $159.90 to $160.90. That's easy calculation. That's $1. Now, to move to option 2, you see that there is a $3 increase in the delivery charge, not a 1, a 3. But the difference is that the energy charge is reduced. So in actuality, you're at $1.70 above what we're currently charging. Now, to help make that make sense, I've got real examples. We went and looked at a barn, a typical barn, and this barn that we looked at, they used 2 kWh, which means it must have been, a blink in the night. Boom, boom, For that 2 kWh over this month, we made 19 cents, which we really didn't make because at 80% of that, we had to send to TVA. So we made a couple of pennies off of that. The current 1942 delivery charge, you can see that the green line represents our target of $25.49 cost of delivery. Under option 1, now we've creeped up $1. Under option 2, since there's no energy to offset, this is what we're trying to address these folks here, the inequity, because they have to be subsidized by everybody else. But you can see we have moved significantly closer to meeting our target of $25.49. Now, another example. This is, and I've got a picture of this trailer. This is a double wide, and they used in the wintertime 4,489 kWh, actual example. under this, you see that they had $420.39 worth of energy. And you see way down that green line, that's what we're trying to get to. We surpassed that, no problem. Now, for option one, the cost to this person is increased by $1 because we went from 1942 to 2042, and we didn't change a nickel on the energy. But option two, where we have increased the delivery charge by $3, she actually has gone down almost $4. You see, so for this particular one, and even though we're not talking about a great amount, but the thrust of what we're talking about is there is an actual cost reduction for this customer because the reduction in energy more than offsets the increase in delivery charge, which is really what we want to get to in equity and fairness to everyone. The closer we get to that bottom line delivery charge, to the green line, the more flexibility, real flexibility we'll have in adjusting the energy charge down. So this option does what we said we would want to do in the time when we're meeting this delivery charge. As we get closer to this, once we get there, we can be more aggressive in really what that energy charge is. But this is this actually does a better job of targeting the area where we need it most, i.e. the barn folks, where we have a lot of money out there with 19 cents worth of return on that, not making it. We're losing money, absolutely losing money. And to compound that, when they do use energy, it's generally in that 25 degree below zero time when they're trying to keep something from freezing, which is on our peak, which means that we are paying absolutely top dollar for that, you see. So now, what does that mean in terms of revenue for us? Under option one, which is what now we've included in this budget, is annually, we're looking at about $347,000. Under option two, we'll actually get more. It's at almost $700,000, about double, almost double, by adding this $3 reduction and $3 with a energy reduction. So I offer that up to you because, well, first of all, I like option two better because the revenue's more. That's always good. But taking that aside, which is taking a lot aside, but if we take that aside, it much better targets the very thing that we're trying to do, is give an appropriate energy charge for what you use, coupled with an appropriate delivery charge. And at this time, I think that this best represents where we're trying to get to, and it does give, right off the cuff, everybody a reduction in energy cost. But if you're only losing 2 kWh, there actually, with rounding, there is no savings at all for you. You don't go down to 18 cents, you're still at 19 cents on that. So that I offer for your consideration. If that makes sense to you, or if anything makes sense to you, I would direct you most clearly to consider option two instead of a $3 increase in the delivery charge that's spread over 3 years with no energy reduction. So I'll answer your questions, which I have more slides.
How do we calculate that, the delivery charge, the 19, whatever it is now? What is how do we come up with it? That's the delivery.
We have our financial advisor, which is this Chris Mitchell Consulting Group. He has now over 70 of the 154 utilities. He represents 70, over 70, he said, of those. So we get an independent number. of how that's calculated, and he went through, and
That's our cost to have the hookup.
that's
to the
right.
house.
This
Don't
is,
we- don't
this
we know
is
that?
Just to
July.
make the electricity available.
Right, this is the poles, the wire, and everything associated. This is what he went through, and it was up here in July of last year. That's right.
So he's taking the cost of the poles, the wires.
Yes, but we haven't had him refresh that, because we know the cost is going up. We haven't had him refresh that because he charges us for that. So I didn't see it.
No
what-
use making the goal bigger.
That's
until we reach
exactly,
the goal.
that's exactly right.
Well, personally, I like this option from the standpoint of what we've talked about earlier. I think it's, look at the net increase, because I guess my only question would be, the 2549, is that what it is?
Yes.
Can you go back to that
Where do
slide,
we
Dudley?
stand with our sister utilities in that? I mean, is that a?
Oh,
Yes, thank you.
that goes all over, because some are much higher, some are way lower. And the reason that they're way lower is because they haven't faced the reality of what this means. The full understanding of what it costs. We now for 10 years have a smart system where we're pinging the meters. They're still in mechanical. Everything to them, because historically, end-use rates meant everything was the same. It's called in the industry the postage stamp effect. Everybody pays the same for the letter no matter where they mail it, you see. And for that, if everything remains the same, there's no incentive to delineate the cost of service, which essentially, that's what it gets down to. What does it cost to serve? Well, it doesn't serve you to go through that process when it doesn't cost you any more, because you always get your 20% off of the margin, off of what you sell, irrespective of how that works. Everybody pays that. So they haven't addressed this. That's why there's some utilities that get free internet, and they're afraid to address the cost associated with attachments to poles. So the cable companies across the state, across the valley, point to this utility is charging us $8 for an attachment, and this utility is charging us $25 for an attachment. It's not fair. Well, what is fair is not the $8. Do you see? So I believe in time, when that becomes fully comprehended within the industry, those that are not as progressive will all have to move. The 70 that Mr. Mitchell represents, all are as rapidly as they possibly can
Trying to achieve that.
get to their cost of delivery. You know, and that doesn't vary, but just a dollar or two. It costs less if you're encapsulated inside a city limit that you have 500 miles of line.
Right.
You see, it'll cost less to serve, per individual. That as opposed to where our makeup looks like a co-op for certain 6 counties. We've got miles of line with nobody on it. You see, but we have to calculate that in the calculation. So when we revise this, we'll look again, but it won't be next year.
Okay, that was gonna be.
That's the way it will.
I got 2 questions.
Yeah, it will not be next year.
So by doing this, if option 2 is agreed upon, I'm not gonna hold you to it, but we're good for a year or so, or 2.
That's correct.
A year or 2.
That's
Okay,
correct.
number 2, the increase in revenue that we talked about from option 1 to option 2, what is the plans for that increased revenue? Would that be to hold on for days of cash? I mean,
Well,
what's our goal? What
Thank
would
you,
be-
thank you for asking that, and I'm gonna bring my wife up, because she never watches this, so I can do that. She likes to pigeonhole, don't tell her either, please. She pigeonholes everything, where my style is the bucket. I work the bucket and work everything out of that bucket. This is gonna go right into the general fund, into the bucket, but so I can't say, although it sounds nice, that we'll take this 300 and we'll put it towards the P&I, which is the next issue. But obviously, some of that's going to go towards the P&I. It'll all go in that bucket, and that bucket will represent this here. Both option 1 and option 2 are direct to our bottom line. It jumps right to our bottom line because there's no additional cost associated with that because we're already bearing this cost. So this is real dollar for dollar going right into our system, and it will pay these capital outlay projects. It'll pay the maintenance costs, it'll pay the administration costs, and it'll pay the P&I for the next step of what I'm going to be recommending to do. It's a good thing because every dollar that this comes in will increase our days of cash.
Right.
No question about it. Every dollar increases our days. But we don't have anything special that we want to get in addition to what we've already outlined, saying, well, if we get this, then we can afford to
We're
do
gonna
that.
add this line in.
No. This is
Christmas savings fund or
No,
whatever.
this is-
We're not
This
working that.
is, this is part of the bucket.
Okay.
From a customer standpoint, what's the break-even point? How much, a customer using how much kilowatt hours will
About-
see an increase in how?
It's about 4,000 kWh. Remember
So
this
everybody
one
who
here,
uses more than 4,000 will see an increase in their energy bill.
everyone that uses less than 4,000.
4,000 will see an increase in their energy bill.
That's correct. But then you say, well, how much is that? You know, everyone will see a reduction in their energy bill. Everyone will see a reduction
Per
in their-
unit, the rate of it.
the rate.
KW
But what they'll
charge.
see is an increase in the delivery charge.
Yeah,
So
but
the
they
net
look at the
effect,
bottom line, you know, what
Yeah.
is their.
And that's the 700,000.
the net effect, because of the $3 increase, you're gonna have to use, you know, it may be less than 4,000. I just threw that out because I see that this is, you know, maybe 80 cents or 90 cents less than $1. So it'll probably be 390 or something in that range. That's the number that will go down as we adjust the energy charges, as we increase this delivery charge, which then again speaks to the equity. So this is a baby step towards equity. It's not like we don't need a delivery charge from everybody. If we weren't adjusting a nickel on the energy, you know, we would. But that's the flexibility that we'll have once we get the delivery charge where it needs to be.
Well, in this instance, with option two, they're gonna save $3.58.
Yes, that customer will save that,
They're gonna
which,
save $3.58.
which offsets the $3 additional dollars of delivery charge, we say.
Yeah.
So that customer would save money. So you've got,
This person is coming out 68 cents today.
right, that's right.
Okay, so is the 2549, is that actually what our delivery charge, what it's costing us for our, that's a real number?
That number is real as of July 2016.
Okay, and so July 2017, what do we expect that number to go to?
Well, I'm not going to ask them to calculate that because we don't calculate that number. The consultants do that, and I didn't want to ask because it's going to go up, not down. I didn't want to ask them that because we would have to pay for it, and it wouldn't help us with this.
I'm just trying to look at, like in the years past, over the last couple of years, how has that delivery charge increased? Obviously, it's going to increase each year.
Yes.
How much has it increased each year over the last several years?
We don't calculate that every year because we're so far below it that having it higher wouldn't help us because we can't. I wouldn't recommend tonight. I wouldn't recommend, nor in the past, I wouldn't recommend that we jump from where we are to where we need to be because it's too great of a lift for our customers.
Right.
This is I like to use the word contribution. We make contributions towards getting to where we need to be. So I know that number is going to go up, but not $4 and $5. I suspect that if we did that today, it could be
15, 20 cents.
well, I would maybe go 40 cents, something like that. You know,
50 at the most.
When's
Yeah.
the last time we had that number? When are okay, you did this
we
one
did
last
it
year.
in 2013, and I believe it was like a 2080 or something like that.
It was close to $24.
Yeah,
if
I think it was close
remember
to.
right.
You're
If I
right.
remember right.
So
I thought it was 2402, but I could be wrong.
well, you could be very right in that. You know, it was it was a bridge too far to get to because we were significantly undercharging for that. And
$10
what
under them.
got us going here is 2011. In 2011, TVA changed the way we do business by removing this end-use charge where they would only charge us, they would look at the cumulative total of our meters and they would charge us on that. They call that end-use rate. How much did you sell? That's how much I'm gonna charge you. Do you say, which was really great, for everyone, because it didn't matter what the weather was.
We always kept the margin.
You kept 20%, because if the power cost was down, didn't matter. It didn't matter what you sold, because you were still just gonna pay, that 80% of whatever the power cost based on your sales. But now, especially for these utilities, again, remember that we average about $90,000 a month in avoided power costs just because of what we do to demand. The other utilities are not capable of doing that. So what they pay, depending on the weather, their costs could actually be right up to the amount of what their revenue is. So they can shrink that 20% to 3%. And if that means 3% to all of their O&M. We have 9% towards our operating expense, 5% towards our maintenance expense. So right off the top, we're looking at 14% we need in order to stay whole in a month. Now, if that drops below that, we're on the wrong side of that number. They don't have the capability to make that number, to manipulate that number in any way. So they're slaves to the weather. They can get 5% or 6%, and they're needing 14 and 15% too. So they lose money. They actually lose money. The revenue coming in isn't sufficient to cover the O&M going out, and for that month, they lose. So that's the risk that TVA has avoided. When they did that in April of 2011, they put the risk on this utility. By April of 2011, we were technologically in a position to where we could capitalize on that, and that's when we went to the virtual power plant to manipulate the demand to shave peak, and that's where we saved so much money until TVA wisely caught on and how we were making tremendous gains during that period of time, and then restricted our ability to make these big dollars. And now we're just down to what I think are still big dollars, about $90,000 a month. Other utilities are not capable to do that, and the only way that they can avoid doing that is to make sure that the fixed cost, which this cost of delivery is a fixed cost, that's covered. And their fixed costs are not covered if they're only charging $11 for a delivery charge. And there is no easy way to get to their delivery cost unless they make contributions towards that, because as a general manager, you're not going to go to your board and you're going to say, I want a $14 increase in a delivery charge. That reasonably is not going to fly.
Okay, so if we do option 2, we're still $3 short.
That's correct.
Of the delivery charge. Assuming that whenever that we raise that delivery charge to what it's actually costing us, would there be an additional reduction?
Oh,
in
absolutely.
cost of usage?
Oh, absolutely. An energy charge and the rate that we get,
Yes.
absolutely. There would absolutely be that.
So the person living in this double wide trailer probably still wouldn't see much of a difference if we went ahead and raised the actual delivery charge to what it.
Oh, they would.
The charge.
If we got to the
I'm saying,
25.49
it wouldn't be
today, if we did that today, we could do a much more significant
absolutely.
energy reduction.
That person right
They
there
would-
would
they
see,
would- oh, yeah.
would see a much greater reduction, even though they're now being charged $6 more on a delivery charge. They could be $12, $15 less on the energy charge.
But the issue with this is, the average customer consumption, average household consumes.
About 1,500.
How many KWs?
That's what I'm saying, about 15. If
This is a high user.
No doubt about it.
This is a high, this is one end of the extreme.
That's right.
But the average consumer within our geographic region,
about 1,500.
1,500 KWs.
Yeah, 12 to 1,500, you can say. I mean, depending, that we have seen go down because of energy
Because of smart
efficiency.
thermostats and
That's
all the
correct.
rest.
That's
What
correct.
would, what would their bill look like? What would the average customer's bill look like?
Well, if I looked at, say, 1,500 and say, okay, this is 1,500. They're running, so they're gonna go from $159.90 to $161.67, about $1.70 something cents.
$1.77. With the $3.
With the $3, that's correct.
And so 77 cents more to increase from 1 to 3
Right.
in charge for the average
Right.
1,500
But the
KW
barn guy's gonna see a $3 increase.
Or the cabin person. that's
Or the
using
cabin,
it 3
that's
months
right.
a year.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah. Well,
So I offer that then as our recommended option to proceed, Mr. Chairman, if you want that from me.
all right, yes, sir. I hear where that Ms. Harrell was going, and I agree with her. I think at some point in time, we need to try and see kind of what we could set that KW charge at and get to the actual cost of delivery. I don't know that that's at this point in time because of the fact that that probably would be too great a movement for the 1,500 KW customer, the average customer.
When I bring that back to you, and it will not be next year, I commit it will not be that. When I bring that back to you, I'll have 50 more slides showing you how this is the best thing we've ever done, and these rates.
Well, what I like about this model is this, I like the fact that we are increasing the delivery charge. But at the same time, we're not just saying that later on we're gonna decrease the KW charge.
Oh, we're doing it now.
We're marrying the two together. And it, like, of course, the city council side of it, a year or so
Makes good
ago,
sense.
we increased taxes a little bit. But at the same time, our fire rating improved. So you had some folks whose taxes went up, but their homeowner's insurance went down because of better fire rate.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's
Held
like.
them
you know,
real close.
And I think, I personally would rather increase the delivery charge enough that we could also show the consumer and our customers that,
Where we're going.
hey, we're doing this, but we're also doing this, so we're offsetting it some.
Yes, sir, we are. And
Rather than saying.
And we're targeting, the very thing we're trying to do is to get the non-user to pay their fair share and recognizing that the heavy user should get a reduction in energy costs.
They're floating the bills anyway.
That's
I mean,
right.
They're keeping us above water anyway. So I like putting the two together.
$3 or $4 in their bill.
I just didn't like the idea of, we'll increase it $1 and one of these days we'll decrease the KW.
Right.
I like putting it all in
Well,
one package.
see, this compounds too, because the additional 350 that we're getting this year, we're gonna get next year too.
Exactly.
What's the current cost per kilowatt hour, and what are we proposing that it decrease to in option 2?
0.0085 is what it's gonna go down. That's what, our consultant said, that's the rate that they put in, because he massaged that, because we needed a reduction in energy that was not going to usurp what we're trying to do on this delivery charge.
I'm just trying to think how it will sound to the customers out there.
Well,
And I
we'll say
that
over a year's time, it will cost you less than a dinner at Calhoun's. I mean, that's essentially what we're talking about. I have a $40 swing in my cable bill in a month, and I still don't understand how that happens, and I stopped calling them, because I'm not getting any answers at all on how that works. So here you're talking about such a small amount of, dollars in $1.60 or $1.40 or $1. I mean, everything's under $2, however you line that thing out. So it's such it's such a small amount, it's hard to get to
From a
percentages.
PR standpoint, I think Jim is right, though. It sounds a lot better if you're saying.
Energy
there will be a-
reduction.
Yeah.
And
An offsetting
and
decrease
a
in the
contribution
energy
towards
cost.
making the actual cost of what it costs for us to serve you. And I don't know if anyone could disagree, because it deals with the equity question. It costs me this much money to bring an electric meter to wherever you're at. And we need to make that up whether you use anything or not.
Use all you want to.
That's exactly right.
Use none.
But I don't want the people that are using a lot to pay for the people that are using nothing, you say? So this is a contribution, a step in the right direction.
And the reason we showed you a trailer is because a lot of people think the high energy users are the rich people that have big homes. They have efficiencies.
Oh, God.
More efficient.
It's these people that live in these
Appliances.
trailers and apartments that have no insulation, using stack heaters in the
Or
winter,
windows.
window air conditioners in the
There's a
summer.
guy that-
That's the ones that are.
Got a 400 amp
Hurt.
service that uses nothing. I mean, we put everything on that house to try to figure out in case he was stealing, you know, how in the world it could be that low, but it's up energy efficiencies. But the poor folks in the trailers are the ones that are getting hit because that cold air's running through that thing like nobody's business, and they have the least efficient way to heat. Eventually, and on this example, they're saving a little, but we're only increasing a little, so it's not like we can have 40 or 70 or $100 swings. They will actually see an offset in a reduction.
I appreciate the way you did option 2, because I don't see how any customer can complain that we aren't taking care of both ends, and it's not going to affect them to a large degree. So I appreciate the effort you all took to get to option 2.
It's gonna cost me more to heat my pool.
You know, actually,
It'll save
we
me.
are going
But
to
I'll save
skip a
money on
bill
the house.
and then come back and charge you double, you know. That's, but, I mean, turn the lights on the tennis court because
I'm not
we're
gonna
gonna
burn
charge
them.
you. That's right.
I represent both ends of the spectrum.
We all do.
Are there any other questions or comments? Having heard this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for, and I'm thinking that we're leaning towards option 1, so I'm going to ask, I mean
Option
2,
two.
excuse me. What I'm going to do, I'm going to ask for a motion on 1. I don't get it, then we'll say, could I have a motion for option 2? So if you're leaning that way, when I say, do we have a option 1 motion? From anyone? Hearing none, do we have an option 2 motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We're labeling that 8.5, and we're going
I
to,
will redo the budgets to reflect this additional 300-some thousand on the bottom line. It won't spread out into the numbers, so that'll be the easiest thing for us to do. It'll be revenue in GSA 1 and residential, right?
That's where it's gonna hit.
Right. Thank you all. I think it's the right thing to do.
I'm going to label the next item there relative to our budget approval. It's 8.75. That is the approval to engage TML, the Tennessee Municipal Bond Fund, to assist CUB in obtaining the funding for our capital projects for the next year. Mr. Fay,
Thank you, Mr.
I'm
Chairman.
going to give you the floor
I'll
back.
set up-
You
I'll
need
set-
to catch your breath?
No, I'm good on
No, I
this.
didn't think so.
First, let me say that I appreciate Roger Houck and his friendship, his support, and the conversation that we've had over the last several months. He is just a fine person, and he is very easy to work
Sure
with.
is.
I'm telling you, and he's a great supporter of what we're trying to do, and he's been a lot of help in this. That said, I can't say enough about our friend Bone Severs, who has supported this utility and me personally for 40 years, ever since, I've worked with him down at the city, and he's a great supporter of this community, of this city, and certainly of this utility. In addition, Steve Queener, who we all know and hate, I tell you, he is a piece of work like nobody's business. I tell you, he has been helpful to us since the day I came here. He was working for the city when I first came here in 1977. A great guy, and he now is working for the bond fund with Bones, and he is one of our local reps, and he has been a lot of help. Linda Mooningham, we have worked with on other bond issues, has been very responsive, up to even this afternoon we're getting information. So we couldn't ask for a better group of folks to do business with, and we couldn't ask for them to be any more expeditious in providing us the information that we needed in order to provide you a recommendation on how to move forward. Referencing last month as we went through 40-some slides, we made the case for why we thought it was a good idea that we borrow money so we can address this intergenerational inequity over trying to pay as you go for capital outlay, and we showed that over the last 5 years, we're 30-some million dollars in cash has come out of this company in order to fund a lot of these upgrades that we're talking about. Because of our cash position, although we're financially sound in every respect, and every bond issue and every reserve fund, all good. We felt prudent to look at whether or not it would be appropriate, given several considerations, that number one, we can borrow money for very little. I've been in Washington, and I've talked with our legislators, and one of the issues that they bring up can be have a very negative effect on the cities and the municipal utilities, and that is, as we look forward to this tax package of the current administration, everything is on the table, including the tax-free advantages that they give cities to borrow money. That's one of the things that makes it so advantageous for someone to buy municipal bonds, because of their tax-free nature. That's why they can get such a low rate. It's designed to stimulate capital expenditures within cities, because they can get low cost money to do that. That is going to be potentially on the chopping block. So it is a good time for us to borrow money at a great rate. I don't know if it will be a good time next year, because there's a chance that percentage could go up. So that, coupled with an outpouring of additional $7 million in cash, coupled with our own belief that irrespective of what the comprehensive tax program is going to do, that we believe interest rates are going to inch up. We've seen the Fed now 25 basis points a push. There is no reason to believe that that's not going to continue to go. So it is a good time to borrow. Then where can we borrow? Who can we borrow from? Where we get the best bang for the dollar? We think that we can do that through the Tennessee Municipal Bond Fund. So we are recommending that we borrow $7 million at a fixed rate, which is revenue only, Jim, and that you can stress, so it's not revenue and tax. So in no way does it encumber the city to back this issue up with the taxpayer. Not that would make a hoot's worth of difference, because we'll do like we do on every other issue. We'll immediately start double dipping. We'll be taking money not only to meet the current P&I, we'll be putting a like amount in a reserve fund until we get to the highest year. Now, what they helped us with is they've got, for fixed money, they've got variable money, but there's not a whole lot of difference, And if we assume that interest rates are gonna continue to creep up, that variable rate will creep up. So we looked at that. There is some sense for that, but Dudley and I, with consensus, believe that it's probably worth going fixed rate. But even with a fixed rate, one of the reasons that this rate is so desirable, but it's so low, is that the banks have the option with either 7 years or 5 years, and we get the choice, to where they relook at that, to where if interest rates are way, way high, they can bail. They can bail. We don't really think that's a big problem for us. We want to get this 7-year fixed rate, and then they have to give us 6 months if they want to back out of the agreement, which means that we would have to refund that.
Refund it.
That's right. Well, we believe we could pay it off if that was if it got to that, we would balance that at that time. But it gives us 7 full years.
Fixed rate.
But we're going to get it for 25. We're going to say that this is a 25-year bond, even though in 7 years they could pull that back, because if it's still a low rate, we'll just carry that out for as long as we can, realizing that in 7 years, of course, the principal would be a lot less. There's no question in my mind, we'll just go write a check and pay it off. If it ever got to that, we'll be in good shape to do that. So what we're recommending is a 7-year fixed rate, revenue only, a 25-year bond with the stipulation that we understand that it has a 7-year rate adjustment clause in it to where they can either adjust the rate or completely pull the rate. And again, we were looking at a short-term bond anyway, so we're not afraid of this potential 7-year rate reallocation if they need to do that. I don't know why they call it a fixed. When they can adjust it in 7 years, it sounds like a quasi-fixed rate to me. The issuance cost is 0.6%. 0.6%, so that's $6,000 per million. That's $42,000 on $7 million. That covers everything, so there's no bond counsel fees, there's no printing fees, there's no, resolution fees, it's all, and they get that on the front end when the issue comes out. What we will do, because we can, is we will structure this as a draw loan. And that means that we're not gonna get it until we need it. So we won't be paying interest on something that we don't need, when I can only get now, if we're lucky, 70 basis points, right? So I don't want to pay 2 point something in interest off of something I'm only going to get. And there is
0.7.
where many are familiar with the word arbitrage, that it's illegal to invest and get more than what you are borrowing this money for. A really smart guy in Ohio did that, and for Cleveland, they paid for their bridge because they borrowed at the slow rate. They invested it at a high rate. They used the investment income to pay for the bridge, and then they used what was left over to pay the whole note back. So that's where the word, and I think his name was arbitrage. That's where that came up. We're not allowed to do that, but this completely takes that off the table. So we have to take at least the minimum of a third of it every year, so we'll have 100% of that within 3 years. But we'll only draw that down, when we
What's
need
the
it.
interest rate?
Well, of course, that's going to be on the day that we close.
What's it looking like?
About 2.8. It's about 2.8, which is,
Now,
I will borrow
Feds
money.
met this week?
Sir?
Have the feds already met this week?
They have 25 basis points.
Okay, I hadn't heard.
Yeah,
Okay.
25, but
It's still
this,
1.25.
yes, but this 2.8, I don't know if that is already, if that's factored into the 25 basis. I don't know if that's going to move, but it'll be whenever we do. So by doing this, I think this is the most appropriate thing to do for the 40 slide reasons that I gave you. And I think that working with these folks is the right thing to do for this utility. we certainly appreciate working for them. And I think that we have flexibilities that we wouldn't normally have, So, given all of that, and I'll answer any questions that you have, I recommended that we move forward on this $7 million fixed rate, revenue only, 25 years with a 7-year adjustment rate. That's my recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Fay. Do we have any questions? Any comments? Having heard none, could I have a motion and a second for the approval of the terms that Mr. Fay outlined through the Tennessee Municipal Bond Fund?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion second. Having asked for comments or questions, it's time for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Like sign. Let's move on then with the approval
Well,
of the budget. Technically,
and if
that
it-
approves it. I
yes,
mean, I know,
if
but
it's all right, I know the time, I'm sorry, but if we can give Dudley an opportunity, he can go over some of that budget and answer specific questions about that. This
Okay.
budget has this $7 million already incorporated in this source and use of funds, which he'll show you what page that's on.
now, it's my understanding that it does not have the $3.
It has a $1,
It
so
has
that'll
the
be,
one.
that's right.
Okay, all right. Mr.
So let me ask this real quick. So what'll happen is if we approve this budget,
With changes,
there'll be an amendment
that's correct.
next
Well,
month to vote on?
Well, I won't do that. I mean, you'll approve the budget with these changes, but that's a pretty easy change. And
Okay,
then
that's what I thought.
what I'll do is I'll
Because
just,
it's gonna go to the bottom line anyway.
yes, and I'll just get you a new copy.
Gotcha.
You want us to leave these copies here?
That's a good idea. Thank you. That way we can just change those pages.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir. Thanks, sir. Mr. Fay?
Okay, I always like to start with these charts, because it kind of, especially for new members, it kind of shows you how we're set up, where the money comes from, residential, that's half our income, our sales. Our large industrial customers are in this orange pie, and then our small, and then you've got like interest income and outdoor lighting. But then where the money goes, and that's where our customers get confused sometimes. They think when they pay a $300 electric bill that all that goes in
bring it
their
all
pocket, But as you can see, 76.5% of it goes directly to TVA. Another chunk of it here, 9% goes to operating expense, 5.2% goes to maintenance, and 3% goes to taxes. And we have about 5.5% depreciation. And you say, well, depreciation ain't really costing you, but eventually you have to replace those items that are out there in the field. And when you do that, that's where the capital is. You don't see a piece going out of here going to capital improvements, but we do take it out in depreciation. So, where are we at? CUB Electric Department, our number of customers, flat. We've been flat for a long time. We'd love to see some growth, but as far as number of customers, it's flat. Now, we've picked up some industry and things, and of course, that's always good. When you get one industry, that's a lot more revenue. But as far as just the number of customers, we've been flat. Our net income, as you can see, bounces around, but it's all green and positive. That's good. Now, we'll look at the water department while we're here. Water and sewer, again, you've got these two pieces right here are both residential, blue's water, green sewer. And it's kind of the same makeup as what we got. You got industrial here, water and sewer, and and then you got commercial here. And this piece of pie right here, public authorities, that's ACWA. That's a piece of the pie that's gonna go down here in the next year, and that's because of we allowed them to take their sewer directly to the sewer plant, and they're going around our system now, which is a good thing over time. But as far as sales today, it's going to impact our sales today. But over time, it gives us more capacity. We don't have to. We got less maintenance on our pumps and things going through our system, because sewer is very corrosive, as Dan can testify to. And I mean, it'll eat a manhole lid off, you know. So if we can have them reroute it, that's where they get that rate at the sewer plant, which saves us the maintenance cost over time. But the direct impact today is sales are going down. Now, unlike the electric department, there's nobody else. There's no TVA involved, so all the expense is CUB, and that big piece of the pie right there that Dan hates, 24% depreciation, you know, and that's not something he can't do anything about, because we have to depreciate those items. So that kind of gives you an overview of where the money comes from and where it goes. Now, we'll start with electric. Electric department, with that change that y'all made, where we'll make the adjustment will be in this residential and general power. That'll be an adjustment in those two items for another $300 and something thousand in sales. Power costs right here will not go up, but the net income will go up. So those three lines right there, your residential sales, your small general power sales, and your net income will increase by that difference in what y'all just approved. This thing's killing me.
Charles suggested that if you'd like to leave your budgets, we will take those pages out and replace them and have them for you for next month.
KWH per month.
Right. So what I do is I try to do a normalized year based on the past 10 years. And if you remember this year, the summer was high, but the winter was low. So when I give you your monthly forecast, it'll be more where the summer is normal and the winter is high. So every once in a blue moon, you get a high summer and a high winter, which really helps. But I haven't seen that but maybe 2 times in 30-something years, 36 years. So all our sales we show going up, our power cost is going up, and our margin has been really good. And a lot of that goes to this virtual power plant where we save $90,000 a year. Greg talks about our expenses. I mean, they're all going to go up. Going from 7.1 to 7.4. That's just normal growth, and things go up. I can't help that. Unfortunately, I don't spend the money. I just report the money, and that's just the way life is. Things go up. Maintenance expense. We had a good year this year, really. 3.5 last year, and we're projecting 3.5 this year. So that's really good that held. But in a normal year, you're going to have some more storms and things. So there's a chance that's going up. I try to show numbers that I think are realistic, and not numbers that I hope they'll be. So things are going to go up. Now, the net income, we project at 1.944. You can add another 300 and something thousand to that once I get those new numbers in there, and that'll go up by that amount. Now, funds available. Let's skip that one and go directly to capital outlay. And these are all the projects that Ernie has on the plate for the electric department. Do you want to talk about any of those, Ernie? You want to go over those any?
I have 60 slides that I can show. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I How does that compare to like this current year? Do we have that much in current year capital projects?
It's very similar, very similar. We did make some tweaks. We really haven't added a lot to the workload. We always have to map everything out in terms of how long I think a project's gonna take, and I have to have enough work for the workforce and go through all that, but it's very similar. Dudley and I tweaked a little on the general stuff at the top, and the biggest item, as you see, is when we purchased this second transformer at Claxton, which we'll be able to proudly present Dudley with that invoice in July, I would say.
Let me tell you, we average about $6 million a year. Over the last 5 years, that totaled $30 million. So it's been consistent. What's boost this one up is that transformer by 800,000.
Okay, thank you.
Are the projects that you presented today in here? I didn't, New Rivers in there?
New River Phase 2, 535, and the Rock Bridge Road, you see at 175. And I mentioned when I presented those that we were very close to our budgeted amounts.
And the pole replacement program, I noticed, is 400,000. That stays, you try to stay pretty consistent
As,
with that.
to use Greg's favorite word, that's a contribution that we make every year. Like Dan's department makes a contribution every year to replacing the old galvanized water lines that are weeping. We make a contribution every year towards inspecting, sounding, reporting on all of the wood poles in the system and identifying the worst ones to get replaced.
I tell that and offer that advice to everyone because that's why we were able to do these great projects, because we take bites out of them. And we would, if we didn't make a contribution to the galvanized lines, we couldn't just go out and change them all out, you see. So you do, what we do is we do power use, we study the thermal on these lines, we identify, and then we get the ones that we think are going to be the most problematic. We lost very few poles through these storms. Some of our sister utilities lost 60 poles. Now, we had the same wind, same storm, but if your idea of a good pole is one that's standing, do you say? Then it's rotten on the bottom, and sometimes even the wires are what's holding it up. When you do have a storm event, then all of those suspect poles are much quicker to drop, you see. So I use the phrase, you're out at 2:30 in the morning setting a pole instead of 2:30 in the afternoon on straight time.
Right, overtime.
That's exactly right. And then you got people that are out of power. So we make a contribution towards, one year we sound and core poles that we are suspect because we know how long that pole has been in the system. Go out and check it. Do you see? Check it, core it. They literally take hammers, and they sound them. If it's suspect, they'll drill into core it to see if it's rotten in the beginning. Then we schedule that pole to be replaced. Do you see? Then we have we're pretty comfortable. When you do have a storm event, we can't do anything about the tree that goes down into it, but the wind is not going to blow one of our poles over. And that's really our advantage over so many others. But to do that, you have to pay the money, you see. You have to, that cost to do that. We think that cost is justified because it all goes to quality of service, and quality of service is the frequency and the duration of outages, and this helps to minimize that.
I'm over the customer service department, and we've never one time had a customer call in and complain that their lights are still on.
Not once.
They never complain about that.
Had a bad storm,
so-
doggone it, I'm mad
That's
my
right.
lights are on,
That's,
huh? Yeah.
that's right, so.
Let me give you an idea. Some of y'all know, and I promise you I'll be brief here. I have Sue Butcher that works for me. Sue lives over in Halls. She's served by KUB. I told her about the incident in South Clinton, about 4 poles going down talking about how that within 53 seconds, through the proper type of electronic sophistication, and I'm, Flizzer and SCADA and all this stuff and everything, how that, like I say, we went from 1,455 people out there. 53 seconds later, we had 395, and she's going, my God, with KUB, we'd have been days. And I said, everybody was back in service in less than 3 hours. So, I say that to say, we do these types of things, that allows us to have that type of statement. Hey, we had everybody back online in 3 hours, because technology, good maintenance.
I hosted a-
Identifying weak spots and changing and correcting.
Greg and I hosted an envoy from TVA today in Dudley. And they are like a future leadership group in TVA that I understand was selected in part by Bill Johnson himself. They came here to hear how we do business and why we do things the way that we do. And I told them that our experience with customers is there are two things that they really care about. If you ask the average customer, tell me about your relationship with your electric utility and what matters most to you, what do you think those two things are? It's easy.
Cost and reliability.
That's it. How much is my bill going to be, and how often are my lights going to be off? And to the extent that we keep our focus on those two things that are so easy, they're right in front of us, to the extent we remain focused on that, we'll be successful.
Well, compliments to CUB for doing that so well. I hear lots of praises for all of you all in that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, you're good. You're good. When I was growing up, there was an old Fram commercial, pay me now, pay me later, and that's the way I look at this, is, we make that contribution every year.
I
so
think the
that
board does
we don't-
too,
we don't
and
have
our
to do that.
support, I think, indicates that.
Exactly. So your total is 6.9 million. We'll go back to this cash page. That 6.9 million comes in right here as money going out. But we take what we project that we're gonna have at the beginning of the year, and this includes those reserve funds that we have set aside. And we say that we're gonna have 5 million at the beginning of this next year. And we take out what we're required for bond and principal payments, and that gives us 1.3 million. And then we assumed that y'all would agree to this $7 million. So we've added that in. You add in the net income that's going to come in, and you also add the depreciation, because we don't really spend money on depreciation, so we're adding that back. So with those two numbers added to that, and then you subtract out the capital outlay money, and that leaves you a forecasted fund balance of $7.969 million at the end of the year.
Which is nice to see that even without the bond issue, there was sufficient cash, by about $1 million to meet the requirements.
Which gets us to those numbers of days of cash that we really need to be at. We're big business, 200 and something $1,000 a day to run an operation. You don't really need to be down to $500,000 cash. $500,000 cash to me personally is a lot of money, but to this organization, that's $500,000 is nothing, So we need more than that to operate. So, boy, I'm struggling with that mouse. So, that's where the electric is. Are there any questions about the electric that I need to go into more detail on? Because I've got a book here of stuff.
And Dudley's got 30 slides he can show.
It's the ultimate threat.
Well, we're up to 140 total so far, so, okay.
All right, if not, I'll move on to the water department. And the water works a lot the same way. You know, you've got your water and sewer here, and if you remember, I talked about this public authorities, you know, we're at 416 projected this year. Next year, we're at 318. That's the number that's dropping that I talked about. Sales are pretty consistent with where we're at. We tend to have a little bit of growth, but not a lot. And the expenses, because Dan's more capital next year, we don't expect them to grow a whole lot. This depreciation line that he hates, I mean, that's $32,000 of that increased expense. You know, nothing we can do about that. We have to depreciate our assets. Every time he puts in a $100,000 item, that's going to add $4,000 to depreciation most likely. Our interest income we expect to go up because we're going to get 0.7%, and that was in the years past. That was really good for the water department because we were getting 5, 6, 7% on our money, and with the cash that we had, that would more than make up enough to keep our net income positive. But since it's dropped down so much, we're not getting that surge that we'd like to get. So in some ways, it wouldn't hurt my feelings to see interest rates go up, to help that department. We're anticipating a grant, capital contribution grant. And Dan can talk about more what that's about for these industrial pumps. And let's just go to his capital page, and he can talk there.
Okay, I'll answer any questions you have if you want to hear about the grant. The grant is not in the bag yet, but it is associated with the upgrades to the to 3 sewer pump stations in the Eagle Bend Industrial Park for the expansions that we've seen and are expecting to continue at Eagle Bend Manufacturing and also at Techmer. And so Tim Thompson's been working with the state on that, and we expect to get a $230,000 grant as part of that project. It'll cost CUB2, but it'll be upgrades to 3 stations that we'll need for the future growth in that park. So, like I said, that's not a sure thing yet, but we're pretty close to having that gelled up, so that is in the budget.
Is that what Tim came and spoke with at the council meeting last time, probably?
Yes,
Okay.
we needed a resolution from the council
Yeah,
to pursue
okay.
that. Yes, sir, that's what it was.
Who's
State's
the
back.
grant from?
The state, they backed off a little bit, and then we're trying to get them back on the track on that kind of thing. I hate to name names, so I'm not going to, but some of the other industry out there, as they backed off of some of their commitment, that the state is now trying to reassess, and we're trying to help them make the right call on that. On this, you can see we've got over $100,000 in O&M. That goes directly to the bottom line. They're not capital projects, but we like to list those. Our water loss continues to increase, although the way the state calculates that, we're good through 2020 easy, but internally, we're concerned about that. One of the things that we were doing, and we have done, is within the next week or so, we ought to have this meter, this new for finished water. That way you can't get a good calculation for water loss unless you know exactly what it is you're putting back out there to the system. So we're going to look at that. Upgrades to some of the SCADA systems that is going to help us on some of these tanks to keep our thumb going on that. We're hoping that if we actually are experiencing some of these higher losses as we see it creep up, we're gonna bring in a leak detection group. We do our own ongoing, but this they do it at once, so they can get the whole system at one time. They can generally identify enough leaks that once repaired, it will more than repay the cost of what it took to have that done. But it's a hit. It's a hit on the expense. Then we always are dealing with I&I and trying to abate the inflow and infiltration into our sewer system. We don't want to treat rainwater, essentially. So we're looking at getting some help in that over this next year. This department has a uniqueness in that we have sufficient cash, which really is a good thing. But we're debt-free. We're debt-free, so and we have the lowest rates of anybody anywhere that I know of now. All of that means that we've got the cash to get some of these things done. We just have to be careful of how it impacts our statements. And part of what'll help us is this $250,000 grant for these pump stations, because the state has a calculation how that rolls through. So it's the net income that is the issue in the water and sewer department, not the cash. It is the cash that's the issue in the electric department, not the net income. So it's a little bit reversed there. But this is higher than what we normally would see in these departments too.
I might mention, like Ernie does the polls every year. We do galvanized line change out. A lot of that is in South Clinton and Claxton in the old First Utility District that the city took over back in the 80s, and we're still changing that out. We found PVC conduit that was installed as water main in Claxton. So we're changing that out on an ongoing basis, so it won't impact us to too much of an extent.
When we took FUD over, I told the board we were buying garden hose
Her name was
on
Al
some of that,
Bendo.
you know.
Al Bendo.
That's exactly right.
As far as the pump stations, we do general upgrades to pump stations every year. We do it based on the age, we do it based on the maintenance, just like when we trade the trucks in. Which truck do you trade in, when do you trade it in? It depends on how much it costs us. When it gets to where it costs more than it's worth, that's when we change it out. We've got pump stations in the system that the equipment's 30 years old, but they're still running fine. So we leave those alone, but we proactively change out a certain number of pump station equipment every year. We've got 45 pump stations. There's over 120 pumps and motors in our system. So something's got to be done a little bit every year. If you do 5 a year, you just maintain. And some of these pump stations are $500,000. So it's expensive to operate, but we do, like Greg said, we do a little bit at a time, and we try to keep our head above water. And on the major upgrades like we have in Eagle Bend, we're very thankful for the grant money that we have. Those pump stations need to be enlarged as well as changed out because of the age of the equipment. So I think it is a little higher than it normally is, but it's a year that we need to spend the money to keep level in operating and maintaining our system.
So if we move that over to the cash flow, it works the same as the electric. You know, this is where we think we'll be at the beginning of the year. And then you have your net assets, your net income, and then you add back the depreciation, and this is where you're at, and you subtract out what the proposed outlay is. So even at the end of the year, you're still right there where you started.
No, we're ahead.
You know, so that's a good thing. So like Greg says, the net income's really not the issue. It's is the issue because the state wants us to keep that positive, but we've got plenty of cash. There's really no reason to panic. You know, so.
We're never going to give you a reason to panic. That's why we're proactive in what we do, so we don't face a wall.
And that's all I have, unless you want to go into more detail.
Anyone want to do that? Now, of course, it's my understanding we're going to leave our budget packet so that we get the revised figures, but we do need a motion and we do need a second for the approval of the budget.
Can I ask, excuse me, can I ask one
Yes,
question? Payroll didn't come up, and I guess I'm coming from the school budget.
Oh.
Raises, I assume we got raises?
This includes, of course, we don't have a COLA like we used to.
Yeah.
This includes 3%.
And I'm sorry, I should have said.
What we do, Vicki, is we look at all of the regional utilities, because we try to get parity. And then we select a percentage, like we have, I don't know, nine utilities that surround us are given 3%. We've got one utility that's given more than that, 3.5, and we've got 4 utilities that are given 2.5. So the consensus is 3%. So then we infuse this budget in with a 3% increase in payroll. Then how we distribute that out is based on time in service, time in your position, and then the evaluation of the performance in that position. So there will be some that will be getting more than 3%. There will be some that getting less than 3%.
What is the range?
Well, the range is from 0, if we don't include steps, because we have folks that are in steps, like linemen are in steps. You take that out, the range is probably between 0 and 5. So the impact on the budget, give or take, is 3%. That's infused in there, but a percent above or below that wouldn't impact a budget this size, depending on because of the salary. So, but 3% is that's going to be the core number that we're going to be looking at.
Is that and I'm just asking because I'm new and I hadn't been here in a budget session with you all. Is that the same for administrators as?
No, well,
How does
no,
that work?
no. As we look at those, the same concept applies, but I do their salaries. Then at the end, when we get into other business, the board will do my salary. So principally the same thing, the contribution and the performance and everything else is an evaluation as to what we look at these, what I consider the top performers are going to get the top end of that. The non-performers are, well, they're not going to get it, but they're going to give it an opportunity to perform because we want to give money, which means that we want to celebrate the contribution that you're making.
Sure.
So if you don't get anything, it's not like you're going to not get anything next year either, because you won't be here next year unless you're going to get some kind of an increase, because that's based on your performance. And those non-performers, we try not to surprise anyone. No one should ever be surprised if they're terminated, unless it's one event that they do. So if it's a performance, we work with them and we specifically try to tell them, here's what you're not doing and here's what you have to do. And then we don't allow a lot of time go by. Sometimes we do it once a quarter and say, let's evaluate how you've responded to the suggestions on how you can improve your performance. And then if they don't do that, anyone that gets an unsatisfactory in a performance, that has to be corrected. Now you can get a step above that, poor performance, but if it's unsatisfactory, it's just that, not going to be tolerated. But here are the things that you have to do to make that not happen, you see. So our workforce here, let me just say, is fabulous, because if it wasn't, they wouldn't be here, you see. So we pay very well for what we ask them to do, and they do that very well because that's the standard that we have up there to do. But the impact on the budget, how the payroll is, 3%.
Thank you, I just didn't know
Yes,
the
ma'am.
answers to those.
Great question, I'm sorry. That's something that and I'm just kind of asking, really, I guess what we should have, when that we incorporate in our budget, we ought to probably put in there something, shouldn't we, that says this assumes a 3%.
Oh, anything you want, I mean, it's.
But I'm just saying, I think that'd be a good idea. That's good, it's a great question.
It's in there, that's That's the
I mean,
number.
we know that's built in, but I'm
That's
just
the number
saying
we
if there's
build
a
in.
footnote that says something to that effect, I think that would be a good step
Sure.
in the future. So, unless someone has a problem with that, I'd like to ask for that to be in next year's budget, indicating that the salary adjustment was based on X percent, whatever
Yes, sir.
that it
And we could even
is.
put that in this year's minutes. so
Sure.
that- So that.
And that's-
In
Absolutely.
future years, you just go back and look at that.
Absolutely.
That's why Mr. Bowles is writing
You know,
that
there's a,
down, and
there's
why
a,
that I'm
there's a
saying.
very
Curiously.
real possibility that that was in last year's, because it was 3% last year also.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
I think people just look for that,
I'm just
whether
saying,
it's
if we've
this-
got like a footnote or
Yeah.
something that tells that, rather than looking at
Test
the
that
hard
too,
number.
Vicky, we don't, we try not to verbalize the actual utilities because that's confidential. But that's what I look at.
Well, we did that in the schools too. We kind
Right.
of looked around to see what
Yeah.
everybody else was doing, and we looked at the
Sure.
city to see what the city was doing. So we do that. I just didn't know how CUB did it. So thank you for sharing that.
And Mr. Bowles, thank you for taking that note down. I'm sure everybody here on the board would agree with that addition for next year's budget. Okay. Any other questions relative to the budget? If not, we do need a motion and we need a second for the approval of the budget for fiscal year that ends June 30 of 18.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Other business, Mr. Fay. Of course, I know.
Thank you.
Obviously, we'll,
I've got that last,
okay.
my salary, so you can just sit in anticipation. While we have received, I love it that I write this thing down just like I talk, so I'm gonna read it because it's just like me
Is that
talking.
all you're going to say?
No. No, I just comment that on me.
You can't add nothing in.
I've enjoyed that. While we receive many verbal thanks for our continued support of the regional utilities and dispatching crews to assist them in power restoration, I provided you with a copy of 2 letters I received last week, and you should have had that out because they were, not only was it very nice, it specifically highlighted the people that make the difference for them, and that's the professionalism and how helpful they are and the quality people that we have working here. They absolutely set the standard for everybody there, including their own people. What we sent out there is the top folks, because everyone we have out there are top folks, and that is recognized and appreciated. And I thought you may, as a board member, because we say that all the time, it's nice to hear other folks saying, this one manager says, the most professional and helpful folks I've met in the electric utility industry. That's going a long way, and it speaks well, I think, to CUB. It speaks well to the quality of the employee that we have, and we are blessed to be, to have such, I think, a talented, caring, professional, competent work crew that we do. I just wanted you to see that others also see it that same way. In the most recent storm, CUB sent crews to 4 neighboring utilities. After we get our power on, and we make sure that our folks have an opportunity to rest, and the weather isn't such to where the expectation is we're going to come back into another storm, our first responsibility is to our people in our service area. But given that, then we ask for volunteers. For those that want to, we allow them to go. This crew that you saw in this one utility, they have seen them before, and they were thrilled that they were willing to come back. Although I believe that the gift cards that they got associated with that will help degrees away if there's anything in the future for them, and I don't blame them. They certainly deserve that. In the most recent board meeting that we alluded to earlier, we found out today that two of these utilities gave credit to Cub for their ability to restore power to their customers. We made that big of an impact. So we helped and service 4 utilities. As you know, we had the same storm and we were spread out all over the system. You know, what the FLISR that what we talked about, you know, I really want another acronym for that. That great system that we had worked flawlessly in doing that, and we restored power. Our system as a whole, as we look out and we ping, we're able to dispatch to the people that we get on, that can get on the quickest. We got everybody back on, and obviously the others were days in getting theirs back on. So we were able to assist them, and we were glad to do it. The proclamation from the mayor and the city council of the city of Norris, which I sent you a copy of, we were surprised and humbled to get that, and because as the song goes, you know, the radio's on. I'm going to read this to get it into the record if you don't care. Whereas the Clinton Utilities Board has been an integral part of the city of Norris, and whereas they have displayed love and care when trimming our trees, and as they have restored power to citizens with the greatest of dispatch after damage from a storm, and whereas their continued investment in their utility system is also an investment in the city of Norris, we therefore recognize and thank the Clinton Utilities Board for their dedicated service and respect for the character of the city of Norris. On behalf of the city of Norris and the city of Norris City Council, I hereby make this proclamation on this 8th day of May in 2017. Very nice. We really appreciate that. I know you all do also. As Ernie alluded to, today we hosted 9 TVA directors and managers of TVA. That's the way they represented themselves. CUB was asked to indoctrinate them in the relationship between TVA and the local power distributor, which is us. We represented the 154, and to learn about the challenges and issues that we deal with on a daily basis. We had them all morning, you know, because we shifted this board meeting to today, because there were so many of them in their schedule, it was difficult to adjust. We just went ahead and just had one long, lousy day of working with them. So it worked out to where we had a lot of interaction, and it's a great opportunity for them because we explained our vision for what public power is. We talked about the widows and the widowers and how the decisions that we make, we want to, through that prism, does it help them or does it hurt them? And if it hurts them, then we don't want to do it. And that's why we were so interested in TVA and how they spend their money. You see, in the decisions that they make that we don't think fit the prism of helping the end user, which we have the responsibility to be stewards of their money. Since we give our money to TVA, you know, it all comes from the end user. So that's why we sometimes have so many disagreements on the choices that they make and the decisions that they make, which we don't think are the economically sound and feasible. And we said that in such a way that we tried to make them smile, but we got our point clearly across, I think. They were very appreciative of this time, but we spent hours with them, literally hours with them. They invited us out to lunch, and we said that that's not good use of ratepayer money, so we didn't go, just to make our point. But we did ask them for a gift card, which we didn't get. So, for what that's worth.
Is that what they do to the people who come and help the linemen who go and help during storms?
Is that what-
How do they pay them?
We have a mutual aid agreement, so we have specific standards in terms of time and equipment that we have to send. We have done that we've decided on that beforehand, so we don't have to go through that process. How long did you have these folks? How much equipment did they bring with them? You know, and if we send any inventory with them, you know, we're glad and happy to do that too, depending on what they do. And then at the end, we calculate that up, we send them an invoice. Our boys get paid on our rate,
Okay.
you say, and we take care of them to make sure.
But if you send a bucket truck,
Oh, we charge them.
you've come up with a rate of
Oh,
what it
that's right.
costs for that bucket
By
truck.
the hour.
And you know how much that is.
Yeah, that's right. Or a line truck or anything else that
Whatever
goes
else.
with it, that's right.
I didn't hear what you said. We pay our
We pay
team
our
that
boys.
goes out.
That's correct.
We just get reimbursed
Okay.
Okay,
later
I was
from the
just curious.
utility.
How does what's the protocol if there's a storm in Norris or Lenore City or Alcoa? Do they reach out to us?
Oh, yeah.
Or do we
I was
proactively-
getting texts right away.
They reach you? Okay.
Yeah, this thing vibrates at 11 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
and we try to work things.
Yeah.
I mean, one, it was 12:30 at night.
yeah.
I got a manager texting me, is there anything you can do? And I told him, well, no, because while we were back on, I'm not going to allow
We're now in the woods. you
our,
know.
well, I want them to rest.
Yeah.
We send them home to bed, and I'm not gonna give them an opportunity to get up out of bed. I want them fully rested. So it wasn't until the next morning, you know, that we worked with
Well,
them.
I just wondered how that
That's
worked.
when accidents happen
Well, sure, I mean,
and liability goes up.
when we have them, we control. We control their rest, we know it, and we'll go 24 hours. I mean, hey, you know, it happens at 10 o'clock at night, they're out from 10 o'clock at night to 10 o'clock the next night, you know. But then after that, we cycle them out. We get the on-call guys or the first guys to go because they're the first guys in the field, you know. So, and we cycle that out to make sure that they get their rest. And we have facilities up in the operations center, you know, where we can put them down in the bed for a couple, I'm telling you, 2 hours. 2 hours makes a big difference, you know. For me, it wouldn't make any difference at all. But for them guys, they re-energize. Yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
Any other questions on that? Because I have nothing else but the last issue, the board has to set, as you know, my salary. That's the last thing on the list.
That's the last thing on the agenda. Okay, well, what I would like to do then, I would like to open it up for any suggestions and or discussion that anyone may have. And then, we'll entertain a motion and second for the establishment of the percentage raise for Mr. Fay.
I can just say, Mr. Chairman, if I can, for the edification of some that have rolled on, first of all, this is the very easy time. The very easy time, because I appreciate my job here and have. I love our community. I've always had opportunities elsewhere, even as recently as in the last weeks. I can tell you, because there is always been a concern about that man makes an awful lot of money. I can tell you this, and I've shared this with the chairman, and we've seen where this is public information, very hard to get. We had talked at one time about having a firm come in and realizing that, you know, that always doesn't work out well because they generally are very, very high on that. We serve in 6 counties, we got about 30,000 customers, and we serve water and sewer, and as Dan knows, that's a no easy feat to deal with that. And sometimes that takes an awful lot of our energy and time. So that's an added bonus, you know. But I listed 3 quick utilities here. 5 counties, electric only, no water and sewer, 33,000 customers. And this is 2013 numbers, that this manager made over 250,000. So 3% a year, that's 280,000 in today's dollars. Another utility, and I have these, but I just don't want to mention them out by name, but you're welcome to look at them later. Electric only serves in 4 counties, 34,000 customers. made over $275,000 in 2013, and the 3%, that's over $310,000 in today's dollars. Another utility serves in 7 counties, electric only, 34,000 customers. And he's been a CEO for 10 years, that's all. He made $375,800 in 2013, and at a 3% a year, that's over $420,000 in today's dollars. So these are progressive utilities that they all do a very good job. But these are numbers that are far exceed, where I'm at, and I set them out there to, first of all, reassure you when someone says, how can he make X amount of dollars when this other person isn't making anywhere near that? This is a different industry. We are marketed for what we produce. We have, arguably on anybody's scale, I don't know of a utility that surpasses what we're able to do here, and I quite frankly don't know hardly any that meet the same level that we do. Salary is always a touchy thing. Am I appreciative of my job? Yes. Do I appreciate my salary? Yes, it has fed me and my family, for all of these years, and I love our community. I mean, I've been here 40 years, and I wasn't born here, so I don't have that kind of root, so I'm here by choice. But where we land on the salary, we have to politically feel like that is a doable thing, and I understand how that works, but I don't want you to think I'm overpaid, because I'm not overpaid. And there are some documented folks way down the road from where I'm at. So anything this board, as we end today, whatever that is, assuming it's more than zero, because then we would have further discussion. I'm going to appreciate it and carry on. So I'm just saying all that up to the upfront. You're not going to see the wild man that we saw before, because that was an issue where I thought promises were made and promises were not kept. How's that for a preamble?
Works for me. Do we have a motion from anyone in regards to a percentage of salary increase?
I think that Greg, I agree with everything that he said, basically, although geography is very important. You have to be compatible with the location where you are. I worked in multinational, big companies, and how much you made varied greatly depending on which state, which country you were in. If you wanted the big bucks, you went to New York or
These
London or somewhere like
these
that.
are all Tennessee, 2 hours
Yeah.
away.
But, so that's my only concern, that we have to, as the custodians of this company, we have to make sure that our people in CUB are paid in accordance with what other people in Anderson County and these counties make. And I think the previous board members who made promises that would limit or would dictate what future boards did, I think they were wrong. I don't think you can do that, just like, Congress can't make promises that a future Congress has to be held accountable for. So I think they were wrong. I think, whether or not their numbers were right or not, they shouldn't have been making promises that they weren't in a position to fulfill. But I think you're doing a great job. I think CUB is doing a great job. I think if we're looking at a range of 3 to 5%, I think you should be at the 5% end of that range.
Well, let me just say, because if I were you all, I would say, well, what do you want?
I would.
But I think that to me, I think that's appropriate. What is your general manager going to find acceptable and happy and satisfied? Because I would want my general manager to be satisfied. I can tell you that, because that says that you recognize that I'm doing more than that minimum core work, and I would be satisfied with that. So wherever, if anybody else thinking anything else, what would I be happy with? I would walk out of here saying that recognition, which is more than $1,500 a year. Do you say? I mean, it's not the $1,500 a year. It's the message that's being sent, and I would be pleased with that message. So,
But,
if
yeah,
that'll help.
I've been in positions, again, where different levels have caps. You know, I've had people who've done outstanding jobs, won Nobel Prizes, but they didn't get any more money because they had reached the top of the level where they are. You know, we don't have that, but we still have to recognize that there are ceilings up there on.
Of course,
different jobs.
I'm going to shut up before I get past where I need to be. But to argue that, you know, I believe that you paid a person for the contribution that they made, and since we're just talking about when these are local areas, I'm telling you, 310 is what I turned down to pursue in May. 310, because I'm old and I love this community. There are different priorities, but you don't restrict somebody's salary, because I had one board member say, don't pay them any more than that because they won't leave anyway. That's not the way I do business, and that's not what you're suggesting. I'm just saying that if we only paid what the highest person in the Anderson County government was making, all of these people in this room you wouldn't see. Do you see? Because we've all been offered more somewhere else. We take pride in this utility and what we do. I take care of my people in order to where they can't get pulled, you know, unless they have a different position. They're not going to get pulled because of their position, because of the contribution. That's why we are doing so well. That's why we're making so many strides. That's why the quality of service that we provide, and that to me makes a difference. And the millions of dollars that we have shown to where, because of us, not because of anything else, because of the people that we have here, that makes a difference. So that's why I would argue that. But again, I'm just trying to get back to that mellow place that I always get to. All good. That sends a good message to me, Charles, is what you suggested.
I yield to anybody else who's saying.
Well, I would agree with you. I mean, you very eloquently stated what you stated, and as far as previous boards, I wasn't here and wasn't privy to those type things. And,
What was that?
and I just don't think that was fair, and I don't ever want to, even in my role as city council. I mean, I hope and pray that the city right now is in the best financial shape it's been in a long time, at least in my opinion. But yet, there's one day I'm not gonna run again. And my hopes and goals would be that the predecessors that follow me keep that same mentality, but again, I can't.
You have
I
to
can't-
justify every action that you take. You need to
Yeah.
be able to.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, then you don't do it.
But I will say this, I mean, CUB is a superior, I mean, I've learned a lot, and I've asked you a lot. I've tried to learn a lot. I've tried to intentionally learn a lot.
Most of what I said was true.
Dang, now I gotta figure out what was.
Or at least amendable.
Well, don't clutter me with
I'm
anything
sorry.
tonight, because I struggle enough as it is. But like the days of cash, I mean, I've asked you about that. I want to try to understand that. I really do. That's just my nature.
The more
I may not be able to
equipped and informed
I may
you are,
not be
the
able to
better it is.
repeat it in 30 minutes.
I understand.
But I understand it up here. I just can't get it down to here sometimes, or at least I hope so.
It gets-
But I mean, CUB's a quality program. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, you guys do a phenomenal job, and have a water and sewer system that's debt-free, and, you know, your goals. So, I mean, I yield to Charles's words, and I mean, I can go with that. I don't disagree with that 1 ounce. I mean, I've had questions, and by George, if I've got questions, I'm gonna ask them. And when I ask a question, doesn't mean that I'm doubting, it's just I wanna know, I wanna understand. And I even made a comment before the meeting started that the whole Blizzard, that the way it is?
It's
I don't know.
Flizzler.
He messes me up every time.
Well, I
You
tell
get me
him-
right, he
I
screws
tell
it
him
up.
Fizzler just to keep him confused.
No, I was the one that screwed that up. I'm
But
one
anyway,
called it,
I want that.
instead of Flizzer, Fizzler.
I
My
want that
bad.
presentation made in a city council meeting.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I think that's something to be proud of, and I think that that's quality that people can grasp. I mean, most people don't want to know about a budget, or most people don't understand about capital outlay programs and stuff. But when you show them and you give them real-life scenarios, but here's what it actually meant on that day in, was it April?
May?
That was in May.
Hey, here's what it meant on
In
that
early
day in
May.
May, and those type of things, so.
And I
With
agree
that
with you,
said-
it needs a better acronym.
It does.
But you
I'll
were-
think of something.
But I can, and there have been, in previous meetings, this has been one of the most tense times that we've come upon, or I've come upon, anyway.
You don't know nothing.
Well, I'm glad I don't, because I might have just walked out. But,
Me
anyway,
too.
My first meeting on the board.
It was terrible, Charles, I know.
This.
Sorry. It's kinda like when I got sworn in to immediately get sworn out as a commissioner.
And it was
I
two
swear.
against two. It's my first meeting, and there were two people wanting to go one direction, and there were two people wanting to go a totally different direction. And I'm the deciding vote here in the middle, in my first meeting. And it went 3 hours, I'll bet, didn't it?
Yeah.
I committed never to do that again because it's not worth my health on that kind of stuff. And again, it's about the message. It's a message to me, what you're sending to me, which is what I send to my people, you know. I appreciate the job you're doing, and here's one way, and when you talk about percent, you know, you're not talking about millions of dollars here, you know. It's to send a message, and for $1,500 annually, you're sending a negative message as opposed to a positive message. It just doesn't make sense to me, and that's the messaging is what worked on me, not so much of the amount, it was the message.
Any other questions? Then do I have a motion and do I have a second? Because, you know, we've talked about out from 0 to 5, and so I think clearly that Mr. Price's suggestion there says we are recognizing excellent service and we're rewarding the same. Now, do I have a motion? Do I have a second to that effect?
I'll make the motion since
Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you so much.
Any opposed, like sign.
I appreciate it very much.
That concludes item number 10. As is the custom, we'll go to Mr. McBride for any additional input.
I don't know if it would be of any value or not, this is just something to think about.
Okay?
In presenting the budget, and would it be, and let me back this up. Number one, I said this last month, and I truly did appreciate the fact of the, capital improvement, or the borrowing the money, what's it called, the municipal bond
TMBF.
fund. I like that. I don't like surprises.
Oh, yeah?
I hate surprises, I'll just be honest with you. I like the fact that that was shared with us the month before.
Yeah, that was
And giving us time to digest and think and talk and ask questions. Okay, the budget, I would like to ask, is it reasonable to get the budget in May for the approval in June? Is that
Yes.
a reasonable request?
Yes.
30 days advance?
Yes.
Just so, again, it's one
but
thing.
all I would do is if there was a project or an issue, it would be clearly what would be amended on
Yeah,
that
oh,
following
yeah, yeah,
meeting.
oh,
That
yeah, yeah.
first would be a
It's a-
healthy draft.
It's a tool.
That's right.
And it's a working
Oh,
tool.
absolutely.
Just like, again, I go back to city council, we have 2 readings. You have your first reading, but you can always come back and look at the second reading
Right.
and tweak a little here or there.
Right.
And so, is that a reasonable
Absolutely.
request?
We will do that. If you noticed, and you will, and certainly Gary, because he's been on for a long time, I'm doing more emailing to
I like,
keep you in the loop.
I like that.
Do you see? So you don't have to digest it.
Well, you sent an email out yesterday, and I called you on the road because
Which
I
really-
didn't know the whole story
Which
behind
really
all
helps,
that,
and as
which
soon as this meeting's over,
I asked-
we can talk a little more
I asked
about
you two,
that.
3 questions, and then
Right.
I understood what you sent.
Right, but that's gonna be, again, it is an evolution of the sense of the board.
The board.
What does the board want, and then you evolve into accommodating that. My sense is, which helps us, the more you are empowered with information, the better board member you're gonna be for us. And for Jim, the more you have in depth, the better representative of this board to the city council, which really we turn you from being their representative to us, you're gonna be our representative to them,
Right.
which is really good.
And sometimes I know a question I want to ask, but it takes me a while to figure out how to ask the question so that it makes sense.
Well, there's nothing we're ever afraid to
So-
answer
so- but
or
that-
look at.
That lead time, I would
Count
like
on
to
it.
ask. Okay.
Count
thank-
on it.
Thank you.
Mr. Price?
You know, just following up with Jim, I think you could just send that out as a draft budget electronically, you know, we don't.
And
Right.
I have
Yeah.
absolutely zero
Yeah.
problem with that.
And what I'll
I
do,
agree. Good.
the thing with this, as we go through to try to get these, what other utilities are doing, they're right at the run, but whatever ones that I have, or if I have a sense of where I'm probably gonna try to go to, I'll include that in that email that you get. We're still gathering information, but it looks like it's gonna be around X amount of percent.
Right.
Going, I can do that too.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Harrell, any comments?
I appreciate the prior notice of things that we're gonna be looking at as well. One thing that I would like to, I guess, ask and get more information on is the delivery charge. I mean, I know you said you're not gonna come back next year, but if the delivery charge is $25,
Why,
the delivery charge needs to be $25. And, I mean, I made a motion, I seconded the motion to approve the $3 increase tonight, but I also would like to know if we did another increase, let's say next year, to
what
get us
could
to
be
that
the energy reduction?
to get us to that $25 delivery charge, what could be the reduction? And give us an idea, like the charts that you presented today, of what's it gonna cost the customer, what's gonna be the benefit, cost or savings to the customer on a low end and a high end.
We'll do
I would
that.
like to see
As
that
well as
as soon as
average.
possible, because here's the thing, next year, the delivery charge is not gonna be $25.49.
Right.
And if we continue to go at a turtle's pace, we're never gonna catch up.
Well,
Great bar always slides.
can I offer this, because I just love what you're saying, because that's our desire too. What I recommend to this board, I balance so many things, and part of what I balance is the doability of it. What is, I don't want to use the word, the political piece of it, but it is fair to say that I prefer to take more baby steps, more steps to get to where we need to go to, as long as we're going in that direction. I am thrilled with the decision that the board made today. I don't think it's inappropriate at all, because I don't think $3 is over the course of that. But when you get to more than that, then you're out a little bit harder into this thinner ice, that justifying how to do that and the impact it's going to have on what I used to live right here on Fowler Street. When Nancy and I moved here, we rented a house from Jack Raines, Sweet Jack, who we love, and we paid $145 a month for that house. I look at me back in that house because our neighbor, the Bakers on the other side, they were on fixed income. And that's why I always when I reference fixed income people on Fowler Street, I look at them. You know, that's in my memory. I see them. And $3 makes a difference to them. So when I offered this board a recommendation, I balance all of those things, getting to where we need to go as quickly as we need to get there. That's what we want. But the quickness of there needs to be sprinkled in my opinion, over time. But to be empowered with that knowledge is always a good thing, and then we can make a decision as to when we want to implement that. But we'll get that information if you like. It's really because we want this to be done in October. Unless you direct me to, I'm not going to have that information for you in the next month or so. I'm going to push that out a little bit because we couldn't implement it. We'd have to do a special thing, which I don't think I wouldn't recommend it, but I'm ready to do what you want. If it's all right with you, I'll push that out a little bit and we'll get all of that information.
And that's fine. I would like for us to have time to look at it
Oh,
prior
yeah.
to the meeting next year.
Yes.
So, and I want to say that I appreciate your consideration of families and their needs and the situations that they're in. But based on the PowerPoint that we saw here tonight, the families that are living in the trailer parks,
Are
who are
getting
the
hammered.
ones that are probably struggling in some form or fashion, they're the ones that they're really going to see the benefit from
They
it.
need the most relief too.
And
And
not that
the
there's
fixed
anything
income
wrong with
people,
living in a trailer park. I've been there. I've been in that situation, and it's fine. But for me to have lowered my electric bill whenever I was in that situation, I would have welcomed it. And so I would like for us to have that prior to the next meeting next year.
Absolutely.
In ample time to be able to review that and
Absolutely.
make a decision.
Well, was this month good for you, or do you want to?
No, you're good to wait.
Okay.
You're good to wait, because like
Okay.
you said, if we did anything else, we would have to have a special meeting.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
That just creates a whole nother chaos. And
Great.
that's fine.
I-
I feel like the change that we've made tonight will get us moving in the right
I do
direction.
too.
Step in the right direction.
But I also would like to see, what do we need to do to get us
Where we need to
where we
be.
need to be. But I do appreciate everything that you do for CUB, and hearing comments from people who are serviced by other utility boards when we are out a couple hours and they're out for a couple of days. And I have to say, as a teacher, I hear other teachers all the time saying, maybe the electricity will go out and we'll get out of school early. And I'm like, not gonna happen. You can start doing your snow dance. The electricity is not gonna get us out of school. So, and I have that guarantee. I know that based on what I've seen.
Thank you.
And so I appreciate it.
Vicki?
Only thing I want to add is just thank you for what you do, the service that you provide for the area. We hear that other people are out of electricity for days on end, and we're not. And that's a compliment to you and to the team and CUB.
Thank you.
And we appreciate what you do.
I accept that, recognizing everybody that makes that happen, and the folks out in the field, and certainly the staff that we have in here.
We're adjourned.